When I was a kid, one of my biggest goals, lifelong goals, still a goal, is that I wanted to build my own house. Like the house that I grew up in or grew old in, I wanted to build it from the ground up, right? And when you're a kid, you just, "Oh, I want to build a house, cool. But you don't really know what that means, right? And then as I get older, I realize you got to know framing, you got to know concrete, you got to know electrical, you got to know plumbing, you got to know HVAC, you got to know carpentry, you got to know finish carpentry, carpet, tile, trim, whatever. You got to know all of that stuff. So I started working to learn all those different trades and know all those different things, and at least know them well enough to do them on my own. And there's been times in my life where I work really hard, and there's other times where I didn't work that hard at all. And I can tell you from personal experience that those times where I was working a dead end job and making $1,000 a month or whatever, 1,500 bucks a month, drinking my face off every night, hanging out with my buddies, just chilling, smoking pot, playing video games, whatever. That short term happiness, it never really made me happy. It never really made me feel good about myself. It was short term. I was happy until I woke up. And then I realized I lived in a shit box apartment. It was basically a trap house. I had, a buddy sleeping in the other room paying the rent. I had a buddy sleeping on the couch paying the rent, you know, and it was fucking miserable. I hated it. And then I got to a point where I wanted to start working on myself, and I got a little bit older and a little bit wiser, and I went to college. And I went to college to for being to be an auto mechanic, and I spent 2 years where I would work ridiculous hours during the day, go home for about fucking 20 minutes, let the dog out, make sure she was good, catch a bite to eat, whatever, and peace out and go to school. And then I'd be to school until 9:30 at night. And then I'd come home and sleep for a few hours and do it all over again. And I did that 4 days a week. I went to school 4 days a week. I worked 5 or 6 days a week. And that was the hardest time of my life, but it was also the most rewarding. It was looking back on it, I'm fucking amazed that I was even able to keep up with it. And I ended up actually graduating with a 3.9 GPA, which high school was not like that at all. I didn't graduate with shit. I did graduate high school eventually, but I didn't graduate on time. Um, and now I'm married and I work two jobs, one of which I'm working concrete for the union, so I'm busting ass for 8-9 hours a day plus travel time. Travel time could be anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours, and then I come home and I work where I live, and it's a part-time job for 25 bucks an hour, and it's draining. It's tough. It's hard to keep up with, and it's hard to find the inspiration to want to do fucking anything on a weekend. But considering I don't get to see my wife that often, it's really nice. It's nice to work for that weekend, work for that day off, and be able to spend that time with her. I have to find that motivation to not just be sitting in bed just tired all day. So it's hard, but this is also one of the gratifying times of my life too, because I make really good money, way better than I ever have, and somehow I'm still broke all the time. But we're making moves. We're putting in the work, and we're getting to where we want to be, and it's very fulfilling. It's way better than being 20 years old and not giving a fuck about anything, and you know picking up as many girls as you can and drinking as many beers as you can handle, and this shit's just not worth it. It's not that cool. It's not that fun. But building a life with somebody and being responsible for people, and being responsible for your work and your ethic, and how you treat people, and your mental fortitude, and your emotional regulations. Sorry, bad contacts. The reason I say this is because I see a lot of guys nowadays that all their aspirations in life is to sit back with their buddies and get their podcast going, or react to videos on YouTube or whatever. And I don't think that there's necessarily anything inherently wrong with those things, but the problem with it in my eyes is that to me, I see that as the equivalent of what I was doing in my 20s. It's trying to make money and live life and be as happy and carefree as humanly possible, but it doesn't breed happiness. You think it does because it might feel good in the moment, or it might, oh, we got 10,000 followers, but at the end of the day, all that really means is what, a little paycheck, a little, some nice comments, what, it's short-term happiness. And the problem with deriving most of your happiness from actions like that is that it's false. It's not real. It's not, there's no authenticity to it. I would much rather plant a tomato, right? I'd rather plant a tomato. I'd plant one, and then I'd slowly watch it grow, and I'd keep the weeds off of it, and I'd do what I can to make sure that it yields nice, big, fat tomatoes. And then as soon as you bite into that tomato, you're like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, I made this. I mean, it made itself, but you see what I'm saying? Like, you worked for something, and you get to reap the benefit of that. And I would rather have that than have 10 million followers. Because the idea behind having as many followers as possible and getting rich off YouTube and whatever is that you could live that extravagant life of having so much fucking money that you can buy whatever you want and you can do whatever you want whenever you want to do it, and that's great. Except for it doesn't give you real happiness. It's fake. And I can tell you it's fake because you take somebody like Andrew Tate, right? Andrew Tate's a good example because he's been blowing up the internet. And if you take a guy like that, a guy who perceivably has, ridiculous amounts of money and can buy all these fancy cars and a big castle in Romania or whatever. And when he first came out, he was talking about just knocking chicks back and driving fast cars and smoking cigars and going to the flyest clubs and blah, blah, blah. And now he talks about how he loves his wife and he takes care of his family. And you don't see a lot of it, but from the bits and pieces that I've seen, you can see a personality change in Andrew Tate. At least I can. It's because I think he may have already come to the conclusion that all the money and the girls and the bullshit in the world doesn't compare to building a life with somebody and taking care of kids, or having a responsibility, or adopting responsibility. And so I'm not here to shit on YouTube kids that want to make millions of dollars off of podcasts and whatever else. I'm just saying that it's not fulfilling and it's not real. And the sad, unfortunate truth is that when those kids who are trying so desperately to get all the followers and like and subscribe and press my fucking buttons and notifications and whatever else, and they just constantly, day in and day out, guys, it really, really helps. It really, really... It's so disingenuous and it's so fake, and they just can't see it because they're blinded by this idea that, they'll just, once they reach X amount of followers, once they get so much money from YouTube, once they get this, once they get there, like, everything will just be great now. And the reality is that that's not going to happen for 98% of those kids. It's just like kids that want to grow up and be in the NBA. It's like, if you're a short, stubby little white kid, but you really want to be in the NBA one day, it's not going to happen for you. And it's nothing against you as a person, but it's literally against your genetics. Short, stubby white people don't make it into the NBA. Short, stubby anybody don't make it into the NBA. It's the same thing with YouTube. All these little kids, well, younger guys, younger women, whatever, they think that if they just keep pushing and keep putting out content and keep posting and keep liking and subscribing and whatever else, that eventually one day they're going to be Mr. Beast, or they're going to be, I don't know, whoever else is popular on YouTube. And it just won't happen. It won't happen for so many of those people. And then they will wake up one day and they'll be 30. They'll have no marketable skills. They'll be overweight. They'll be glued to their fucking screens all day long. They'll probably have problems in their neck and shit from staring at their phone all the time. I think all of us are going to have neck problems at some point. But they don't, they aren't interested in the sort of things that you can make good money at and you can feel fulfilled. You can have a good life. You know, I work concrete and I love it, but it's absolutely the hardest job I've ever done. You know, and some days I struggle just to make it through to the clock, but I do, and I always feel better about it. You know, it's just like people who say, I hate going to the gym, but I never feel bad about it when I do go. You know, it's because you don't ever want to go to the gym. You don't want to go to the gym. But when you do go, you always leave feeling better. I don't care who you are. You always feel better. Because you put in work. You put in work that brings fulfillment. Work that fulfills you. And this entire generation is being pushed away from that for short-term gratification, and I think it just sucks. It's just a bummer for those kids, because eventually that wall is going to hit. Eventually that unstoppable force is going to hit an immovable object, and everything's going to fall apart. Not me. I'll be fine. I know how to build a house. I've put in the time. I've put in the work. I can do all that. Everything. Head to toe. Okay, 90% of everything I can do by myself. But it's not about me. You know, it's about trying to promote a message to other people so that they can take a step back and look at their life and look at what's really important, and look at what they really want to do with their life. And if any of you or anybody watching this, if you've even lasted this long into the video, if you do get to that point where you sit back and you take stock of your life and you take stock of where you're at and what you're doing and how much money you make and who you're responsible for, how well you're doing, how emotionally regulated you are, how many, you know, and a lot of these things are really important. You know, and if you don't agree with that and you decide to use a little motivation and go start doing something that makes you feel more fulfilled, makes you feel better, then great, you know. If you don't, then you don't. But that being said, you know, I joined the union a couple years ago, and it's been really good to me so far. And my dad told me ever since I was a kid, he said, hey man, the second you turn 18, join the union, get in the trades, make it happen. And I don't want to. I spent my 20s being all fucked off and drunk and doing drugs and being stupid. And then I joined the union when I was 30, and now I'm way more happy, way more mellow, way more understanding, way more regulated, way more content, and have way bigger goals. I'm not just working for the weekend. I'm working for 10 years from now. I'm working for real goals, real things that will bring me real solidarity and happiness. And what I found out too when you do that is that you give so much less of a shit about everybody else and what's going on in their life. Like, I will absolutely help out somebody if they need the help. And if I'm able to help them, I'm absolutely down. And I make it a point to try and help out, especially in situations where people are stuck or otherwise, you know, are in immediate need of help. Like, you know, somebody's truck breaks down in the middle of the street and needs to push it out into a parking lot, or you know, need to cover the last $20 on the grocery bill or whatever. I'm happy to do that. And I do it when I can. I do it when I'm presented with the opportunity. Um, because I don't think that you find true happiness out of just doing what you can for yourself. I think it comes from genuinely doing things for other people and putting other people above yourself. And I think that's the mark that a lot of young guys are missing out on. And and I brought up the union thing because now that's one of my biggest regrets, because the union is a 30-year gig and I'm starting at 30, which means I don't get to retire until I'm 60. And that's if I get to retire with the way the government's going. So had I listened when I was 18 and just jumped into it, then I would now have 12 years. I'd be a foreman. I'd be making all kinds of money. I'd be running my own crew. I'd be very fucking intelligent when it comes to doing what I do. I'd be a lot more grounded. And I probably would have got married a lot earlier, and I probably would have a couple kids by now, and I'd probably have that already established. But now I'm trying to start that now. And it's way harder to have kids at 30 than it is to have them at 22, I'll tell you what. So, for what it's worth, that's my advice.